One day my parents went on vacation and I was home alone. 3 of my friends knew I was alone at home that night. We liked to tell each other scary stories, but that night felt different. We were really getting into trying to scare each other. We turned off the lights and started playing the game of hide and seek to scare. I hid in the basement of our house in a room that hadn't been used for 10 years. The curtains were torn and the windows were broken and cracked. One of my friends eventually found the room, but I quickly escaped through a door I found and hid under a small table with a typewriter on top. After searching for a while, my friend found me, but something was off about him. He closed the door and started moving towards me slowly. I felt a sense of dread and looked up to see a black figure with a black face and a girl's body. It was a little girl in a black dress. She pulled me out from under the table and threw me against the wall. All I could do was scream. My friends eventually heard me and came to the room, but they couldn't open the door. I was so scared that I could only scream. The figure laughed and then disappeared through the window. The next day, we found out that a little girl had died in that basement room on the same day years ago. This incident happened in 1998. As I had nothing to do in the evenings, I was just hanging out on my computer. Time had passed and it was already 11 p.m. My family had gone to the village for 2 days, leaving the house empty, so I was planning to stay up all night. By midnight, I was starting to feel sleepy, and suddenly the electricity went out. I wasn't scared of these things, so I headed to the kitchen to get some candles. As I was walking towards the kitchen, I felt like there was something moving in the darkness. At first, I ignored it, as the atmosphere was pretty dark anyway. Then I lit a candle and lay down on the couch, listening to music with my headphones on. The candle went out again, and I lit it again. There wasn't any wind in the house, so I was a bit confused. The candle went out again, and I was feeling a bit drowsy. Suddenly, I heard an extremely loud ringing in my ears. I couldn't move my hands or legs, and I could hear myself breathing heavily. I managed to wake up by reciting some prayers, and when I got up, it was already between 3 to 4 a.m. and the electricity had come back on. I was feeling bored and a little scared, so I got up and went to the television. I needed to use the bathroom urgently, so I got up to go. As I was entering the bathroom, I saw that someone was there. I could clearly see through the transparent glass. I wasn't scared until I realized that there was no one else in the house. I went to the other room and tried to convince myself that it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I mustered up some courage and went back to the bathroom, but it was empty. I looked around and saw onion peels scattered everywhere. I collected them and headed towards my bed. The lights were on, and I could hear strange noises coming from the other room. I was getting more and more scared, and the noises were getting louder. Finally, I heard a crying sound. I was a student from the countryside, and when it was time for me to move to the city, I was excited to start a new chapter in my life. I searched for rental apartments, and when I found one that seemed perfect for me, I eagerly went to see it. As soon as I stepped inside, I felt uneasy. There was something about the atmosphere of the place that made my skin crawl. I tried to ignore it, thinking that it was just my nerves acting up since it was my first time living alone in the city. But as the days passed, my unease turned into fear. I started to feel like I was being watched, even while I was alone in the apartment. I would often hear strange noises that I couldn't explain, and shadows would dart across the walls when there was no one around. At night, I started to experience thin tremors that would wake me up from my sleep. It was as if someone was trying to shake me awake, but when I opened my eyes, there was no one there. One night, I was lying in bed when I felt like someone was lying on top of me. I couldn't move or breathe, and I felt like I was suffocating. When I finally managed to break free, I was gasping for air and drenched in sweat. The nightmares started soon after. They were so vivid and terrifying that I couldn't shake them off even when I was awake. In one dream, I was walking through a large playground next to the apartment building when a bald man with a scar on his neck threw something off the balcony of number 16. He then approached me and said, "I'll be back." I woke up in a cold sweat, wondering what the dream could mean. In another dream, I was flying through the air, feeling the wind on my face and the rush of adrenaline in my veins. Everything around me was beautiful, but suddenly, I started falling. I tried to grab onto something, but it was too late. I hit the ground and woke up with a start. Despite all the strange occurrences, I tried to convince myself that it was all in my head. Maybe I was just stressed or tired from my studies. But then, I saw the man from my dream standing at the entrance of my building. He had a short haircut and a scar on his head, just like in my nightmare. I was so scared that I ran away and didn't come home for 2 days. I stayed with my girlfriend until I felt safe enough to return. When I did, I noticed that things had gotten worse. The thin tremors were now accompanied by a feeling of being watched, and I could hear strange whispers in the dark. I tried to ignore it, but the fear was overwhelming. I couldn't sleep or eat, and my grades started to suffer. Finally, I decided that I couldn't take it anymore. I packed my bags and left the cursed house. Years have passed since then, but I still remember the terror that haunted me every night. To this day, I have no idea what happened in that apartment, but I know that I never want to experience anything like it again.